Hello everyone, welcome to the Hindu analysis for 22nd February 2021. Let us begin with the first article today. India waited till China pulled back its troops. So, the first phase of disengagement between India and China has completed now. But earlier, we understood that both sides are going to perform the de-induction aspect of disengagement simultaneously. But the Indian Army yesterday announced that they waited till the Chinese pulled back its troops from the engaged locations and then started its own de-induction process. So, the first part of de-induction or disengagement is taking place in the Pangong Lake area, that is particularly on the north and south banks of Pangong Lake area. Then what happened was, first India waited for China to clear the north and south banks of Pangong area. Then after verification and checking whether they have completely disengaged or pulled back their troops, then we started our first phase of de-induction. This is according to the agreement. The reason behind this is Indian Army wanted to prevent the repeat of June 15th Galwan clashes. But what happened was, on June 15th night, our Indian Army soldiers went to the Chinese camps where the Chinese were stationed to check whether the Chinese have pulled back their troops from that location or not. Not only the Chinese side did not pull back their troops, they brought in more troops as reinforcements and attacked our soldiers. So we trusted them fully that they are going to disengage from the Galwan area. But we realized when our soldiers went to verify whether the Chinese have pulled back or not, our soldiers were outnumbered and ambushed. So the Indian side did not want a repeat of the same situation where Chinese were playing all along the entire discussions. So to prevent the Galwan repeat and to ensure that the Chinese are playing by the rules this time, because there is no trust between both the sides as of now, and I don't think it will happen in the near future also because of the actions and repeated actions of the Chinese government and the People Liberation Army there. Now, after verifying whether the Chinese had completely pulled back their infantry and their tanks from that north and south banks, we also increased our speed of disengagement there. Now, as far as the discussions is going on, only disengagement has taken place, not the de-escalation of the complete situation there. Disengagement means pulling back troops from strategic locations. De-escalation is sending back the troops that were stationed there into their barracks. As of now, the Chinese have only pulled back the troops from Pangong Lake area, north and south banks of the lake. From there to they pulled back their troops to some around 200 kilometers inland into their territory. If the de-escalation has to take place, means that troops stationed anywhere between 100 to 200 kilometers from the border should move back to barracks, meaning their own cantonment areas. They shouldn't be stationed so near to the border area. That is what de-escalation means. As far as now, only disengagement has taken place in one area and de-escalation hasn't happened as of yet. Now we are waiting for further discussions and further corps level commander talks between both the armies, so that we can have the same effect and same disengagement and de-escalation from Depsang Plains and other hot spring areas. Coming to the next article, amid surges in cases, center orders more RT-PCR tests. Now, some medical experts have come out and said that there is a good chance that India is in the initial phases of the second wave of coronavirus cases. Accordingly, in order to prevent a devastating second wave on Indian population, the central government has written to 6 states, that is Kerala, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir, asking these governments to implement preventive measures and improve their testing abilities and testing capacities. The reason being that for the past 6 days, we are constantly seeing a surge in number of COVID cases in these particularly 6 states. So for these 6 states, the central government advised that please consider conducting more RT-PCR tests to ensure that the cases are valid and the results are accurate enough. Now, the suggestion seems to be that while you conduct a rapid antigen test, if the person receives a negative or a negative result, please consider conducting an RT-PCR test just to ensure that the patient who was detected to be negative is actually in true negative, because the rapid antigen tests are little bit unreliable. So the center is suggesting please conduct more RT-PCR tests. Though it is time consuming, we have to ensure that whatever the cases we are getting are actually COVID cases and not any other defects in the testing systems. It has also asked the states to look into strict comprehensive surveillance and stringent contamination protocols to prevent the spread of the disease again. We are trying to prevent a second wave in India, but the evidence and everything seems to point that we are at least in the initial phases of a second wave of coronavirus cases in India. The health ministry also released some statistics. According to it, it said that 74% of the active COVID-19 cases of the country are in only 2 states, that is Kerala and Maharashtra. After a long time, our positive COVID-19 cases has crossed 1 lakh in number after a long time. Majority of the cases seems to be coming from only 2 states, that is the Kerala and Maharashtra states. These 2 states reported high number of coronavirus cases, and the other states, that is Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, are relatively higher but not as much as compared to that of the Kerala and Maharashtra states. So the central government is implementing a new protocols to ensure that we don't see a second wave, and the caseload also reduces from these respective states. Coming to the next article, clean energy post COVID-19. So one of the first things that we understood about coronavirus pandemic or the lockdown phase of coronavirus pandemic was how much dependable we were on energy security of our country, or particularly in South Asian region. Relatively compared to the Western countries, Asian countries had a little less impact due to coronavirus pandemic. The reason might be a long-term reason or a genetic reason, but we don't know. It has to be studied. But one thing is for sure is whatever the effect the coronavirus pandemic had on South Asian countries and particularly some Asian countries was far less than what was compared to that of the Western countries, that is United States, Canada and European countries. So we were far better off compared to those countries. But one area that we have to be secure and ensured safety is energy. So if you have been following the news for the past 1 week, you might have heard about Texas state in United States. For whatever the reasons, maybe due to climate change, maybe once in a lifetime weather event, Texas experienced snowfall and a snowstorm for the first time in a long time. So the snowstorm, it took a hit on the electrical grid of South Texas. Meaning when the snowstorm hit, the electrical grid of the Texas state was not built resilient enough to withstand a snowstorm. As a result of it, some lakhs and thousands of houses were left without power, and this road infrastructure and medical infrastructure of Texas state was not built to withstand snowfall. Texas failed to build a robust infrastructure to protect its citizens from adverse weather events and also pandemic. It is critical to manage any crisis. We need reliable and uninterrupted energy supply. What was the biggest issue in Texas few days back? They didn't have access to electricity. They couldn't use their geysers. They couldn't use their heaters to keep themselves warm, and everything was freezing around them. You need reliable, uninterrupted electricity to manage any crisis. beyond ensuring that hospitals and healthcare facilities continue to function. Yes, you need to ensure that your emergency security services, you need to ensure that your hospitals, your small scale healthcare centers, everything work like a well-oiled machine during a crisis. At the same time, you have to secure your energy sources and energy resources. Energy supports the systems and coping mechanisms we rely on to work remotely, undertake distance learning, and communicate essential health information. We talked about telehealth in the earlier classes. We talked about e-learning in the earlier classes. We talked about e-lessons, e-degrees in the last classes. What was the main source powering everything was our energy, electricity in certain cases. That is what we need to ensure that the systems that we rely on must be robust enough to withstand any adverse events or any adverse crisis. Importantly, energy will also support cold chain systems and logistics to ensure that billions of vaccine doses make their way to the people who need them the most. One of the primary reasons for a government of India to select the vaccines, that is Covishield and Covaxin from both Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech, was their storing temperatures. India does not have a robust cold chain infrastructure to store vaccines at lower temperatures. So India does not have a cold storage supply system or a cold storage infrastructure. We never thought about building such infrastructure to store critically needed vaccines or medicines. That is why we need to be pre-prepared for everything. When people need our services, when people need infrastructure the most, that is when all these additional infrastructures that the government foresees and builds will come into play. The good news is that our region's energy system have continued to function throughout the pandemic. One of the best thing about the South Asian ecosystem or the South Asian infrastructure capacity was we never had huge failures as that of the United States, where people were losing current, people were not getting their natural gases, people weren't getting water because water froze in the pipelines. Shaping a sustainable energy future in Asia and the Pacific, a greener, more resilient, inclusive energy system released. See, one of the things that you have to ensure that is, one thing that we learned from the pandemic is you cannot fight everything alone. You need to have support in order to tide over a crisis that you have no control over. That is why you need cooperation from your neighbors. You need your cooperation from your friendly countries, even though sometimes those countries do not have best of your interest in their mind. During a crisis, the utmost goal is to ensure populace survives. So you need to have a robust ecosystem and a robust communication network so that the countries that surround you work on the same energy security principles and needs. That is what we learned during the coronavirus pandemic, and we have to ensure that this lesson is taken forward just to ensure that all the neighboring countries will work as one to survive the future crisis also. Particularly, this was well established in a report published by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific few days back. It specifically talked about the renewable energy development in countries across the region, that is the Asian region particularly, as such as China and India continued at a healthy pace throughout the 2020. Let me tell you one thing. Till certain point, China was the most polluting country. Now also it is the most polluting country, but it did one thing that India failed to do so or do as of now. See, till few years back, China was saying that the climate change is a hoax, meaning they did not believe that climate change was real. They were they were saying that whatever the West was saying about climate change was to prevent China from developing itself. When they were accusing China to be the polluting capital of the world, China rebuked the claim stating that climate change is not real. But after a few years, whatever happened, we don't know. But the Chinese government approached the intellectuals of the country. They approached professors, they approached scientists of the Chinese universities in their country. When the Chinese scientists and researchers produced evidence to the government of China stating that climate change is real, whatever actions the Chinese industry is doing to the globe is disastrous to us. Immediately when the evidence was presented to the Chinese government, it changed its policy on a dime. When they saw the evidence that was put in front of them, it changed its environmental policy. It is the more, whether you like the Chinese government, you hate the Chinese government, it doesn't matter. One thing you have to know is, whatever the Chinese environmental policy that they are following right now is the best in the world compared to that of the United States and European countries. China has the highest EV adoption rates in the world. They have the highest number of EV vehicles manufactured yearly. That is what you have to understand. They changed their environmental policy on a dime. But remember, they are still polluting, but not as much as they used to do earlier. Whenever an evidence was presented to them that yes, the climate change is real, they changed their policies. That is what we have to do as a nation. Countries in Southeast Asian region must adopt more resilient and environmental friendly policies. But on the other hand, coming to the Indian aspect of the environmental policy or environmental lessons, we are the second country in the Paris Climate Agreement to implement it to the letter. We are on a track for a net zero carbon emission in 2030. We are the second country. The other country is some African country. I forgot the name, but after that African country, we are the only major economic power in the Paris Climate Agreement to implement it 100%. We are ensuring that our dependence on fossil fuel is reduced. We are on our path for a net zero carbon emission state in the future. That is what we are also trying to do. But we don't have that much of control over our industries. In China, everything is controlled by the government. In India, it's a partnership. It's mostly private, and certainly few aspects of it are public. But the government doesn't have that much of control over its industry as that of China. Chinese PLA, Chinese Communist Party, CCP, controls everything. They even jailed Jack Ma because just his company was going for an IPO. That doesn't happen in India, and it cannot happen. We believe in democratic values. We believe in free market and a socialistic market where people are taken care at the same time. When somebody is able to purchase whatever they can afford, we ensure that equitability. We strive for that equitability. But how can you transform the energy system and help ensure that it will survive the COVID-19 pandemic or such COVID-19 pandemics in the future? You emphasize on sustainable development goals that talk about building resilient infrastructure and ensuring that everybody have access to their energy needs. And we have to address many of the systemic issues that made societies more vulnerable to COVID-19 pandemic in the first place. We forgot that we need to place higher emphasis on healthcare of our population. We forgot that we need to invest more in our healthcare infrastructure. We forgot that we need more resilience in having human resources in healthcare sector particularly. We never took care of it. We never bothered that how many doctors were in an area, how many doctors were treating how much of population, what is the overall coverage of doctor to patient ratio in certain conditions. And we never trained our government officials or government machinery to work as a cohesive unit. That is also one of the lessons that we can learn here. So one way that you can use the sustainable development goals is to take it in a two-step manner. First is to ensure your priority on health, decent work, poverty and socio-economic inequalities. You try to address these inequalities in a systematic manner. These are the few things that you have to concentrate, that these kind of a thing that we are experiencing through might not happen in the future. Even though if it happens also, we'll be much more readier and in a safer position in the future. Second is by directing stimulus funding to investments that support the achievement of sustainable development goals. This is the second aspect. One is the human aspect of it. Second is the infrastructure aspect of it. You need to ensure that as well as you are concentrating on the betterment of the health and wealth of the people, you are also ensuring that the state is ready for any adverse events or crisis in the future in terms of infrastructure also. Particularly, the energy sectors offer multiple opportunities to align stimuli with clean industries of the future. What are the clean industries? Solar, wind, water, hydro. So these three are where we have to invest more and more, so that we build more robust technologies to ensure continuous and uninterrupted power supply to us, energy supply to us. And one of the added benefits of is that renewable energies provide more jobs compared to fossil fuel industries. So investment in renewable energies ensure higher number of high number or high percentage of employment also. It is also useful in both terms. While you are reducing your carbon footprint, you are ensuring that people have some employability level where they can work and earn. And you have to develop an ecosystem where rural areas are also taken care and they are independent of the urban ecosystem. They need to be their own bubble. They have to have their own access to resources and sources, so that they don't depend on urban areas or highly urbanized areas for their medical needs or their energy needs or anything. They have to have their own sustaining ecosystems. That is why COVID-19 has forced us to change many aspects of our life. We reprioritized our habits, we reprioritize our way we interact with the family, we reprioritize our own interests, our own health also. That is what the clean energy aspect of this article talks about. Coming to the next article, boost pace of vaccine, says center. So again, the health ministry has observed that there is a lot of vaccine hesitancy in terms of healthcare workers and frontline workers. So the government is forcing or asking the state governments to implement stringent protocols and procedures just to ensure that healthcare workers and frontline workers and the third category, that is people above 50 plus years of age, receive vaccines without any problems. So we need to boost pace of vaccination. That is what the center is trying to talk about, as the numbers of people receiving vaccine has slowly declined since the beginning on January. So the central government is talking with the state government so that the number of vaccine sessions goes up and the number of vaccination, that is the first dose and second dose, go up higher than what the average has been set, since the numbers are declining. That is what we are talking about. As of February 20, that is 2 days ago, some around 10.1 million healthcare received their doses of vaccines respectively, and we need to increase that number by the double or triple, and to ensure two things. One is that healthcare workers and frontline workers are protected. Second thing is we don't see the repeat of second wave in India. We need to avoid second wave of coronavirus surge at all costs. Since we have vaccines, one that is the best and the most important tool in our arsenal to defeat coronavirus second wave in India. Coming to the next article, India and Maldives sign defense pact. So our external affairs minister Mr. Jaishankar is in Sri Lanka Maldives right now. He's on an official visit to ensure that whatever is happening in Maldives always tilts towards the Indian side, not the Chinese side. He's there to ensure that during this pandemic time, we'll support you any way we can. One thing was we sent money to them. We gave a line of credit, a commercial line of credit, so that they can build their infrastructure. They can buy more PPE kits. They can buy more testing kits. Now our external minister is there, and according to that, during that interactions, we signed a defense line of credit agreement worth 50 million, meaning we are giving 50 million line of credit to Maldives. Using that 50 million, they can buy their own military equipment. Both sides signed on an agreement to maintain peace and security in the Indian Ocean region. Now we are also talking about setting up a base there. That might happen in the future, but this agreement is a stepping stone of that agreement, where we will have a comprehensive and a complete naval base in Maldives. Both sides agreed to strengthen coordination in enhancing regional maritime security and access, meaning both the navies will work closely, and Indian Navy will certainly ensure the sovereignty of Maldives. That is what we are talking about here. Now one more agreement we have signed was to develop, support and maintain a Maldives National Defense Force Coast Guard Harbour at Sivru is also signed. We are also developing their own Coast Guard headquarters in Sivru, where we'll build all the necessary infrastructure for the Maldives Coast Guard to work from. Coming to the next article, Iran says talks with IAEA chief fruitful. Since the Biden administration had shown intent to rejoin the Joint Comprehensive Agreement between Iran and the P5+1, that is the Iran nuclear deal, the Iran representative spoke with the IAEA chief, where they clearly stated that we will rejoin the agreement or we will follow the agreement only if US lifts the sanctions. Remember, in order to ensure that Iran does not develop nuclear weapons, according to the agreement, it must allow inspectors from IAEA to verify or inspect its nuclear sites. That is the agreement, one of the conditions in the agreement. IAEA is a core component of the Iran nuclear deal. When they talk to the chief of IAEA, they are clearly saying that yes, we agree that you have to inspect our sites and everything, but we'll agree that only when US lifts the sanctions that it has placed on us. These sanctions were put in place by the Trump administration to force Iran to the talking table after they pulled back out of the Iran nuclear deal. Since Biden administration is more interested into bringing back things to the status quo situation, Iran is again playing up its card here. Thank you. Have a good day.